So the House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, has affirmed that the chamber will vote on the Senate-passed bipartisan infrastructure bill on the date of September 27. Everybody, this is a signal that Democratic leaders are still plowing full speed ahead on their planned timeline, even though the larger $3.5 trillion bill to invest in social safety net still faces some tough hurdles.
We worked with Senator Manchin to pass the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which was enormously consequential.
In a letter to lawmakers previewing this month's legislative session, Steny Hoyer said the House will vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill the last week of September. So this means, folks, that we can receive a stimulus check next month in October. So hopefully, folks, President Biden can send out more stimulus payments before the end of the year.
But let me ask you this. Where is it written that all the tax breaks in the American tax code go to corporations and the very top?
Now, under that agreement between Nancy Pelosi and a small group of moderates, the House of Representatives is not scheduled to vote on the bill, even though progressives have long warned that they won't support it, if the larger Democratic-only social spending package is not completed yet. Yes, everybody, there's still negotiations going on in Congress between the Democrats and the Republicans, and even within some members of the Democratic Party. So far, the 13 House committees that were tasked with writing this bill have completed the work and advanced their respective portions this week. And once the House returns on Monday from its summer recess, Pelosi has the responsibility of rounding up the votes for the package with a slim majority, and this means that she can only afford up to 3 deductions.
We'll sit down and work together and come up with a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which deals with the enormously unmet needs of working families.
Multiple tricky policy disputes remain unsolved, including lifting the cap on a state and local tax deduction and empowering Medicare to negotiate low prescription prices. Aside from Democrats' two-part infrastructure plan, the House has a packed agenda for the next 2 weeks. It is scheduled to be in session. Congress has to pass a bill to keep the federal government funded past the date of September 30th. That's when the current fiscal year ends. Lawmakers also need to pass legislation to raise the debt limit, which Republicans have vowed to oppose in protest of Democrats' massive social spending legislation. Hoyer said the House vote next week on a stopgap measure to keep the government funded, which is likely to last into early September. He added that it will include supplemental funding for localities fixing damage from recent storms.
In one way or another, in a variety of ways, raise the revenue that we need to pay for this. And by the way, Chris, your point about, taking a look at what we are trying to do.
Like Hurricane Ida. And no state extends unemployment benefits despite calls from President Biden. Now, some governors have cited the cost as being too high to manage, while other state officials say that no federal funds are left to extend the programs. At a news conference, the New Jersey governor told reporters that extending unemployment benefits beyond September 4th will not be happening. So the inaction leaves millions of jobless workers without any benefits to depend on. Now, President Biden has urged states to use leftover funds from the $350 billion included in the American Rescue Plan for state, local, and even tribal.
The evidence is overwhelming that when you invest in childcare, when you invest in education, when you invest in children, you get that investment back many times over.
Governments. It is all done to extend benefits for unemployed workers, and the funds were provided to states back in March. For instance, California used the federal funding for its state stimulus package and for stimulus payments for residents. Among other measures, a provision to extend the benefits was not included in President Biden's first infrastructure proposal. Now, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez plans to introduce legislation this week to extend all federal unemployment programs into next year. An estimated 7.5 million unemployed workers have lost all benefits in September. That's when those unemployment programs were ended. And 4 million more workers lost some or all benefits in June and July, after a total of 26 states opted out of the federal unemployment programs early. Now, while Louisiana was the only Democratic-led state to cancel the programs prematurely, other Democratic governors have faced political pressure as organizations like the Chamber of Commerce have called for ending the extra $300 in weekly benefits. The $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan did provide us with a lot of different stimulus payments. And recently, the newly expanded child tax credit provided monthly payments to families of up to $300 per child. Previous stimulus payments were sent out to relieve the economic burden of the crisis. These payments were average around $1,200, and some people will get more and some people will get less. These surprise refunds are connected to unemployment. Normally, when you receive unemployment benefits, the IRS counts the money as income. However, the American Rescue Plan signed by President Biden in March has changed that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to all of our witnesses for being here today, and a special thank you and welcome as well to Christina Zeiderveen. And it is great to have you here and representing our home state of Iowa and our dairy farmers. I'd like to ask all of you, but Christina, specifically, I'll start with you. It was really difficult on so many of us, and I remember many of those days sitting in Red Oak, Iowa on Zoom calls or Skype calls with commodity groups and just hearing the stories evolving and growing out and the challenges that all of our farmers and ranchers, dairy producers were going through. And if you could maybe explain to us a little bit about some of the issues, experiences you had. You talked a little bit about the federal milk marketing orders from the Iowa dairy perspective. Can you talk about some of the other issues that came out and what should be the greatest takeaway that we have?
One of the biggest issues that was sort of exasperated was the ability to hedge. Like I said, we ship to a cheese plant, so we know that 100% of our check is going to be based on that cheese price. When you ship to a different processor that has some fluid milk or softs, different classes of production, their milk check will be based on a blended number. So they can't effectively guess from month to month what that percentage is going to be and where that number is going to come from. And they are effectively.
Hi, everybody. Representative Sharice Davids here. I am joined today by Haley Collar from Kansas Appleseed. One of the things that I have noticed, and I think in some of the previous conversations you and I have had, we see that access is, of course, a big issue. So I'm curious, what other
income inequality has shaped hunger, both in access to food as well as quality of food?
Well, I do want like one more thing, and then I promise.